Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar,
Allah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
Allah Akbar.
لا إله إلا الله.
La ilaha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa astadihi wa astaghfiruhu. Wa umminu bihi jalla wa ala wa la akfuruhu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. As-salahu bil huda wa din al-haq liyadhhiruhu ala din kullihi wallahu karihal mushrikun. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion, the way, the methodology of truth. And this way of life known as Islam will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. In other words, whether all of the enemies of Allah and the enemies of Islam were to cooperate in a full effort to blow out the light of Islam, this will never happen. Sometimes they may approach us with so much overwhelming strength that it seems that the Muslims become dim and short-sighted. Or it could be like in a time when what they were calling the cradle of civilization, that was Baghdad, was overrun by the Mughal Empire. Not the Mughal Empire, but by the Genghis Khan. The Mughal Empire was us. Genghis Khan and those people, Kublai Khan and his son and all of that. And when they attacked our society, they overran not only Persia, but the Arab world. And it was so depressing that one of the Khan's people could tell, put your head on that rock so I can smash it. And they would do it. But in the long run, if you visit Pakistan, parts of India, Afghanistan, and all of that, you'll find people with the name Khan. You know, and you might wonder, well, how did that happen? Because the Mughals, not the Mughals, but the Mongols, they captured Islam. right? But what you might forget is that Islam captured them. What I mean to say is, they didn't take back up to their society the gold and silver of the Muslims. They might have took a little bit back, but the main thing they took back was Islam. They conquered the Muslims, but Islam conquered them. Now, I want you to feel that when we think about America, because America, see, everybody else here in America is bowing down to America the big, America the great. You know what I mean? And we're the only ones here saying, hold it. No, no, no. You're bowing down to the wrong illah. This America is just like the people of Rome, just like the people of Britain, and they all were washed away by history, isn't that right? They was washed away because they had bad behavior. And they became dictators and criminals, right? And America has become that way. This is not an anti-American khutbah, but we have to understand sometimes we have to stand up because not sometime, we have been doing this all along and we're still alive. Can you imagine? How to punk the FBI, this, that, and other, and we still here. You see what I mean? And everybody else is hiding over in their masjid, wherever they're at, you know, begging and praying that boss man pass them by. Don't stop here, boss man, unless you got presence, right? And we're saying no. This society has not been proper. Now they're looking at, oh, well, they're killing black people up in the north, and this is happening. That has been happening. When has it been a time? Do you know why they established police forces in America? Just anybody got any idea? Why they were established? They were established, of course we went over this in class, so everybody was in class know, because we showed them from their own book that the police departments were established to go slave hunting, to track down runaway slaves in the north. That's why police departments were formed, right? And so when you find in the news some black person that dies because of a police's knee on his neck, this is not a new experience. This is a common experience, right? Tell the truth, boy, as common as it could be. I just want to go over a few things. This is was a friend of mine. This is Imam Luqman. He is in Detroit. And if y'all remember, this was from 2009 when we was raising funds for Imam Luqman. He had been assassinated by the FBI, right? And he had fallen into a trap by the FBI, and they killed him. Now, of course, this is not new for police departments to break in our houses or come in our centers and kill us. It's normal. It is absolutely normal. And when they had his janazah, it was 3,000 people there. And old mushmouth Imam from up in New York, when he led the janazah, he didn't turn around to the people and say, now we have the masjid, we have the family, and we have others here that are in dire need. If it was 3,000 people there, if they would have gave $10 a piece, right, there would have been something, I don't know, 30,000, something like that, right? They didn't even mention it. And the community was already one of the poorer communities, right? And they suffered and suffered. And all they had to do was, of course, 30,000 would have been little or nothing, because the people, you don't know how much they would have gave to help sustain the community. But the community was on the bad list by the FBI, right? The community Some of the paperwork we got, it had S1, S2, S3, source number 1, source number 2, up to source number 6. That means that they had 6 direct people in his community that was standing right up next to him, right? And they were reporting directly to the FBI. And one of them said that I gave him $5,000 and told him that somebody might want something to happen. Imam Luqman said, what we all know, he said, hey, I'm not doing nothing to nobody. I'm not harming no innocent people, right? So the FBI knew he was a good guy, but they just didn't like him because of his attitude. So, and from what I understand, no one else in the United States had any fundraisers. And his wife, that was an immigrant, she's back in Tanzania now, she called and she said, Imam Musa, there's no gravestone for my husband. Of course, the FBI grabbed her up and sent her back. I got a couple of calls from Tanzania because they sent her back. But we was able to hustle up. I said, how much you need? She said, da-da-da-da. I said, don't worry about it. And we got it up there right away. Before we raised funds, they got something later, but they got something right away because how is it? You ever been to Detroit? They got Masjid up there. Seemed like they floated out of the sky somewhere. Anybody been to Detroit and see, like, when you go in a certain area, it's a Muslim area. All the Arabic is in writing and it's masjid after masjid, right? And all of those people wouldn't even put enough money together for a gravestone. And then when we sent the money to his wife, who I've never seen in my life, right? They put out a rumor that I was trying to marry his wife, and I never seen her then, after, or before, right? Never even seen her. I don't even know who she is. All I did, got a phone call, we need help. And I said, that's right, we'll hook you up. I get a few calls from Tanzania now, because they sent her back home. So who would put out some malicious rumors like this unless it was somebody that just didn't want to do no good and didn't want to see nobody else do no good? So that's the case of Imam Luqman. And now, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I guess I just sat down a minute and jumped up with the Christians call it the Holy Ghost or something. Imam Jamil, Imam Luqman, myself, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. Now you may say, this guy really got a nerve sticking himself up there with all these top flight people, right? But no, we're following in that line. That's the only reason we put ourselves here, because we're following in that line. We're not going to allow a crackpot government that's on the way out, right? The crackpot government on the way out. It's on the way down. They talk about all this making a big comeback and all that. Look, you can only give out so much money that eventually you're going to have to pay back. Eventually, people are going to move away from the American dollar, right? And move to some other currency. And therefore, the United States, right, that can print dollars over and over and over again, why can they do that? It's because, it's very simple, their money is the global standard. What does the global standard mean? That means, now I used to live in South America, Mexico and all that, Africa too for all of that. And in Europe, and you know what money everybody was saving? American money. So if you think about the drugs in America and all the money that goes out of America for drugs, do you know I was in Colombia, and this is a little bit after I left. The government of Colombia, or not the government, but the criminal organization down there. At that time, it was Escobar and his crew. They said to the Colombian government, if you nullify the treaty you have with America, right, we'll pay off the national debt. At that time, the national debt of Colombia was about $4.5 billion. That's a little bit of money. Here's a criminal organization that don't want to be extradited to America, the U.S., saying, we'll pay off the whole national debt. All the money you owe, we pay that off. All you got to do is take the export criteria, the entrapment criteria for crime, and take off the one where they can come and be extradited to the United States. And they didn't have time to do it because the government of the United States had him assassinated down there. Okay. So what does all that mean? I want you to think just of the drug trade. Not that everybody in the world, mostly, where I've been, save their money in American dollars if they can get them. They don't sell them in local currency, save local currency. Why? Because local currency is inflated, and what have you. And it's inflated or deflated according to the standard of the American dollar. So I don't care if you're in Pakistan, I don't care if you're in Afghanistan, I don't care if you're in any country south of the border, right? It's based on how many dollars you get. So if they getting Chiquita bananas from anywhere in Latin America, all they got to do is deflate the peso or inflate it. And guess what? If they got a bushel of bananas for $100, when they inflate your currency, they get 3 bushels for the same amount of money because they didn't mess up your currency, right? Now, imagine the whole world right now. It's got their money, basically whatever the country they from, they save in American dollars, generally. Well, think back generations ago when the British pound used to be worth $5, right? That's when London was the center of trade in the world. The British Empire was still in, okay? How much is it worth now? Basically little to nothing. It's almost down to $1.5 or something. From 5. You see? Because everything used to be, the standard used to be the British pound. That's why at Greenwich time, all that goes through London. That used to be the center of trade for the world. Because at that time, the most powerful empire was the British Empire, right? And so all the standards was hooked up based on where London was standing. Of course. Now everything is based on what happens here in America. But if you look at the world today, the world is tired of the United States of America. Tired. The United States have bullied and went against everybody, and now everybody's tired. So now people are looking at, we got to change, right? This little money that we're holding, and we're going to change it to somebody else. Why? Because the dollar, right? Look at the money America is spending, the U.S. dollar. Just look at America. Hey, I'm not no economist, but I can tell you this much. If they giving away trillions of dollars to me and you, It's because they come up with something not long ago, and they looked at 2008. They said, man, we blew it in 2007 and 8, and we held back the money, so we lost big. So what we're going to do this time is, if you ever notice the stock market in recent last couple of years, they try to go down, but the U.S. pumped money back into the stock market. The stock market is higher than it's ever been. It's unridiculous. And it ain't nothing good happened in the economy. Nothing. The Negro is broke. White folks is broke. Homelessness, you ain't seen nothing. Go to California. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. See, because out here, you know, the weather is bad. The East Coast is cold, you know what I mean? But imagine California. Like, this would be the coldest day probably in California. It was 30-something degrees last night, and it'll be almost 50. That's the coldest day in California, in Northern California, where I'm from. And in L.A., it's unbelievable. So where's all the big homeless? If you see a few thousand homeless people around here, you ain't seen nothing. Because in California, they have whole cities of homeless people. And the last time I was there in Oakland, when I'm driving down, which used to be beautiful streets, it looks like, I tell you what it looks like. It looks like the shanty towns in the south. It looks like Soweto and all the homeless shelters. I mean, homeless all the way down San Leandro Boulevard. Whole regions of homeless people, right? Just homelessness. And I don't want to change the subject, but people wonder why when we do whatever we do, we're going to spend a lot of our time on homeless people, right? Unhoused people. There's so many of them in California that they got new names. Dehoused, unhoused, right? And so that's one of the things we want to get into. But in the meantime, America, the great America, we have a few messages, had messages to the people about what we want to do here. And our main goal, so you understand, about community is geographical integrity. Now, right here, the Masjid, house next door, house down there, another house where we stay. All the property across the street belongs to us, and around the corner. So we have 8 pieces of property here in D.C. Why? Because our goal was to establish community, right? Not just have a masjid. Geographical integrity, we call it. That we're going to establish a community, and we want to have a neighborhood where you hear the adhan call and you hear people rushing out of their houses to make salat and all that. You might think because the FBI and all of their people have rolled on us and tried to crush us, that we may have shrank our goals and said, oh man, boss man is mad at us. No, we ain't gonna shrink for nothing. We're gonna expand. That's what right now, right? The government have almost tried to, because the property we own, most of it has not been expanded on, not been developed, right? So right now, old boss man, he said, well, we got these niggas where we want them. So we don't have to shoot them down in the street. We just gonna hit them with taxes and taxes and taxes. So until you can get your property on, the tax list, you have to pay the standard taxes. And then if you have Inc. by your incorporated, you can't get the, whatever they call it, homestead. You can't get even no discount. You can't get no discount. So each year, no, each quarter or each half, we have to pay $8,000 in taxes here, and quite a few taxes on our property in California. In each place, we're under a specific type of attack. Well, we knew before we got into this that if you go up against the United States government, the United States is going to move on you. Automatic, right? Well, now think about it. Here it is, it's over 40 years, the government moved on us on day one in Oakland before we came here. When we came to D.C., we said if we last 5 years in D.C., we're going to get the whole game. That means we will have researched and studied how everything is going, although we knew when we got here from California because they unleashed there. That was in 1989. We're still here. We're still here. And the first part of our stay here was constantly on the ascendancy. You got to remember, constantly on the ascendancy, because even the kindly Masjid in D.C., they would have, if it's the Masjid over near New Jersey, it probably owns some of that property, I'm sure, maybe a lot of it. But its goal was not to spread out all its tentacles all over, right? And have a big Muslim neighborhood. Now, there's a difference. When I used to visit London, and I used to tell them about what we wanted, they said, we want to get out of that. We're tired of these Muslim ghettos. See, there in London, we used to have a lot of programs there, Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui. So they have Muslim neighborhoods. I mean, you can drive down the street and all of a sudden it'll change. You'll see all the girls going to school, got hijab. You'll see Indo-Pakistani everywhere, everybody wearing shalwar kameez, just driving down the street, right? You drive a little bit more and you hit an Arab neighborhood. Half the writings in Arabic, da-da-da-da-da, right? That's just right there in London. You drive a little farther, you hit Brixton, you'll see mixtures, black people, some are Muslim, some Masjid here and there, and mixed neighborhood, mostly black, right? You'll see that right there in London. So their attitude, I was telling them, man, in America, we want to build Muslim communities where we hear the adhan call, you can walk out of your house right to the masjid, and as the preponderance of Muslims living together, they said, we already got that, we don't want that. They want to be in, this is 30 years ago, though, I'm saying. We want to not live in Muslim ghettos, we want to mix in with everybody else, right? And they don't even know what they got. They got a neighborhood where they're safe in their neighborhood. Most of the people are Muslims, right? You can wear hijab and go to school. You can do whatever you want and it's relaxed, right? They don't want that. They want their neighbor not to be as some Indo-Pakistani and an Arab there, right? They want to be like America, where you live in the big midst of everybody. But if you notice, wherever you go and wherever you are at, eventually that place is going to become your neighborhood, whether you like it or not. So all of you that are older remember Northern Virginia over there? It was solid white and black, one or two here and there, right? Northern Virginia is not like that anymore. It hasn't been that way for decades. When they send notes home to the children, it might be in Arabic, Farsi, all kind of languages. They send the notes home in 5 languages, right over there, right across, you throw a rock over there. All right, let me get back to the point. the point is that all the people that want to do this type of thing, some kind of way wounded up on the target list. And boss man, eventually, Imam Jamil is still alive, but I don't know what's wrong with the community down there, but so he's in prison for the rest of his life. And about his vision, he said, yeah, I can see. This is what I heard that he said. But it's like looking out of a Coke bottle. In other words, all vision is almost gone. Health is almost gone. Why? Out of all the people you hear about in the news about the black struggle, right, in the 60s, all of them are gone, except who? Imam Jamil, H. Rap Brown, that's what they used to call him, right? So it was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Kwame Ture, what was Kwame Ture's name? Stokely Carmichael and Imam Jamil, H. Rap Brown, right? Those are the four pillars, or whatever you want to call, of the civil rights movement. The others are gone. And Imam Jamil accepted Islam way back in '76 because he said if it's any solution to the people's problem in America, it's got to be Islam. So he accepted Islam. And the government never liked that. Never liked that. So they set him up. Think about his case. How many in here think Imam Jamil had killed anybody down there? How many of you think he did? Right? It's technically impossible. The police said, I looked into his eyes, and his eyes was gray. Anybody remember that? Imam Jamil's eyes, he was black or brown, just like ours. And he was about 5'10", right? Isn't that what the guy said? And the police said that. I looked into his eyes. I saw the one that lived. Imam Jamil is 6'5". When I talk to Imam Jamil, we be hanging out, I got to look up. And I'm not a short guy. I'm 6'2", that's short now. In the old days, 6'2" was tall. Not now. Because you see the young Negroes out there, they started 6 feet. Right? The people now, I guess. Anyway, but I'm telling you, excuse me for moving fast, but I'm trying to tell you that the government policy today is the same as it's always been. Right? Keep me and you in our place. That's down and that's in the back. We're supposed to stay in our place. Well, we're not going to do that. And we're not going to act like that. And we're not going to even talk like that. Because it's like in Persia, the guy took a handful of dust and he handed it to the guy that came, to the Muslims that came to give him a message. So the guy handed them a hand of dust. He said, thank you, you've handed me your country. That, to him, that was a sign of saying, you've handed me the whole of Iran, and so this was the signal. But he said, we came to free men from the worship of other men, to free them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And people are not that godly anymore. And I'm telling you, they got stuff moving so fast, this technology and, robotics and all of that, artificial intelligence they call it, right? If I were to read you, and I will, a few things from just 10 years ago, and you were to look at it now, let me see if I can, that's disruption in discord, that's all America. I'll look at some of the stuff from Decline and Fall of American Empire, Part 1. That's 10 years ago. That's 2011. And I'm going to try to just run across a few things. The demise of the United States as a global superpower could come far more quickly than anyone could have imagined. A realistic assessment of domestic and global trends suggests that within 10 to 15 years, that means today and up to 5 years from now, we could witness the full collapse of the American century. You know, the 20th century was called the American century. Okay. Now, if you don't realize that when I was a young person in the 50s, if I was born in 45, in the West, a man could work and he could take care of a family of 5 and have a new car and a house, just one person working. And they would be living good, middle class. And he could be working for Ford or GM or any of those jobs, right? The man could work in the family and he could support the whole family with one salary. And they would live like people now live in these middle class. It was considered the middle class. Remember, in those days, women didn't work too much. They were called housewives. They were at home. They took care of the children. The society was fairly stable. But now, you can't do that. And although this was June 2011, it was talking about the global trends. And the global trends was now beginning to come together where America the Great, that was running things since World War II, and technically before, was going into a decline. That when the schools were closing, the bridges were falling down, the streets were developing potholes, right? And the U.S. was becoming a second-rate power. In other words, if you compared the United States with, let's say, China, all the buildings in China are brand spanking new, right? It's pretty, beautiful. All the buildings, when you look at the skyline in New York, the Empire State Building was built in 1930, 31. Remember the old movie King Kong? To celebrate the Empire State Building, they had King Kong climbing up and down there. This is 1931. 1931. Do you know that's 90 years ago? Something like that. 90 years ago. The big boxy on top of each other. They don't build buildings like that anymore, do they? You see all the shiny new stuff from China? 40 years ago, a student could come over here, go to school, wash dishes, and send money back home and pay whatever tuition he needed right here. It was back in the 80s. By 2000, you couldn't do that. Big change. You can work and drive a cab and send a lot of money back home. It's not as much as before, right? And right now, the Muslims, the wife is not a stay-at-home mom like in the old days. They working too. Why? Because to pay wages, to pay what you need in America today, everybody got to work. They're going to bring back child labor in a few years because they ain't paying nobody no money. They want a high wage in America. $15 an hour. $15 an hour is what my family in California made working in the shipyard in 1978. It's a while back, tell the truth. 1978, and they want that to be a high mark. A lot of places don't want to, we can't pay no $15 an hour, right? When you need $40 or more, well, 50 would be nice, right? Tell the truth. Per hour. Because your bills, I don't want to mention the light and gas bill, what they charge you, right? Today, what it costs to live today, right? Unbelievable. Let me move on. So we want a new deal. Here's some of the interesting signs of decline of American empire. Half of the Kansas City schools to close. Now this is from 10 years ago. New York Fire Department threat, 1,000 layoffs and closing 65 fire companies. Los Angeles school laying off 4,000, right? Labor Department says 36,000 jobs lost in February 2010. That's today, that's nowadays. I mean, that's in those days. This thing is from 2011, 10 years ago. That's 10 years ago. Then, dear friends, believers, where are we at now? I'm going to speed up. The points I'm making, America's in decline. When things start going south, people either become more sharing or they become tight as a drum. And America is going through those changes right now. America is going through those changes. And at the same time, the dictatorship of America becomes more solidified. You know how many people still like Donald Trump? You know how many people was down at the Congress on January the 6th? Huh? You know how many people was down there? We happened to go to GW. I took my daughter to the hospital down there. And so I was sitting there. And then when they came out, we all saw one thing. We said, man, all them white folks is packing. All the people, you could see their piece, right? They was all okay. Just 80% of them. Now, America, land of the free and home of the brave, suppose you and I would have been down there all packing. They'd have blasted the whole town. Wouldn't be two of you living. Tell the truth. Remember the black lady in front of the poor lady with the little baby in the back seat? Right? Speeding around the White House, what they do? Blew her away. Bam! Right? Just blew her away. Is it a double difference that you can keep your knee on somebody's neck until they are actually dead? And everybody's saying, please take you off of there. The point I'm saying, and I want to make this, is about America. And this is where we live. If you want it different, me and you going to have to change it. Me and you going to have to change it. We're going to have to set the pace for this transition. The modern transition. And other people can take their time. But you and I is crucial. Have you noticed lately how Asians, Chinese and all of them, they've been getting brutalized a little bit lately? And now they done flipped all the way over. Asian lives matter, right? Would they have said that 2 years ago? Absolutely not. You remember the Koreans in LA in '92 when they had the so-called rebellion and riots? If you would have saw in a Korean household, not a Korean, those stores, right, lined up with AR-15s, that the Koreans would defend their property from blacks, right? But now, and it's good, because they considered themselves as honorable Americans. Last year, the FBI came, and it was a white man, and it was a Korean. And I kept telling him, well, your people, he said, my people, I am an American. This is a Korean. Boy, he was hot about that. Because I'd talk about some Korean history, and I said, well, your people, da-da-da-da-da. You know, I am an American. Well, now Koreans are a little afraid. Why? Because the Americans, the dumb Americans, are wanting to do harm. Chinese, Kung Fu virus, whatever, an old criminal, right? See, look how easy it is to turn the most favored immigrant to the most hated immigrant. Look how easy it is. Go back a year and a half ago, the most favorite immigrant in America, Chinese, Korean, and all of them, right? Poor Arabs and others are kind of, we keep an eye on you. Chinese, you Arabs, sand niggas. What do they call it, Arabs? Sand niggas? Sand niggas, and all that gooply-gok, Indo-Pakistani stuff. They got names for all that, racial names for all that. In England, they called them, all our Pakistani friends, they used to call us wogs, in England in those days. And here in America, the most favorite, remember in the schools how the Chinese were getting all super grades? And of course, their favorite now is still Indians, not Muslims. Indians, Hindus from Hindustan, not India, Hindustan. That's what they call it. They don't call it India. Maybe just to me and you, it's Hindustan. I'm trying to tell you. So, the most favored people in America were those immigrants. Now, the most hated are Asians. All of them. Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, right? You got to see, this America turns on a dime. You can be turned from the most favored nigga in the United States, right? And 2 weeks later, you're the most hated nigga in the United States, right? By the media. By the media. And who is it that's attacking these foreigners, so-called? Chinese, everybody, Negroes, isn't that right? All of a sudden, when they show on the news, it's one of us attacking them. Why? Because they want to divide, conquer, and rule. Right? When you say, hey, I'm with y'all, we say, come on in. But they got Negroes on the news beating old Chinese women and everything on the news, and they see a black face. That black face is like the snitches and stooges that sit up in our masjid, right, and tell on everybody. Them niggas is acting on the government's behalf so the Chinese, Asians, and all the other people don't unify, but they are unifying. And guess what? There's a human movement going on in the United States. Excuse me for jumping here and there, but that's the way it's going today. I'm just telling you. Every now and then you got to try to just paint the whole house and you miss a few spots. So today, you look at America. Black Lives Matter. We know black people don't control it, but it was technically more white people, right, in those demonstrations than blacks by huge numbers. And y'all remember the TV and all that from Iran wanted us to say that how that shows a great transition in America. I said, that don't show no great transition. That show that the system said it's all right for all of y'all to go out, right, and join up with these people, but a few of them are genuine. And then there's another group that they want to decharacterize and make it bad. They may call it Antifa. They're there to start trouble, isn't that right? So they're going to paint the whole crew as bad by what one or two of they people do. Remember the police was, we was on the police, I guess it wasn't the police news, but we walking down the street, the police cut us off. What do you think about all that? I said, it's fine. Said those white people are just coming into our neighborhood to express their solidarity with black people. That's all. We wouldn't want that in our time. I said, no, it's fine. It's okay. He was trying to get us to be mad at white people for white people coming in and say, hey, Black Lives Matter. Actually, that was great. It shows that maybe the old folks is one way, but right there in the middle, and the younger you get, you know what my kids say to me, the second set that are younger. I said, well, these crackers, this and that. Dad, you can't say that. I said, well, white folks in. No, that you can't call, I said, I can't call the people white folks. I can't call them peckerwoods. I can't call them crackers because y'all, I said, what am I going to call them? They're human beings. I said, but they white human beings. That's not bad. But when the kids hear us talk, we sound racist, right? Boy, them peckerwoods, we don't mean bad people. We mean we're referring to white people, right? And to them, I guess from watching all that TV and being up there in college all that time, way up there in Boston, and wherever else they go, well, both of them was up there to Boston. That's racist. I say, Peckerwoods, white folks? Right, tell the truth. What would you call white folks then? Human beings? You say, white folks, crackers? It's not racist, it's just what we call them. Just to refer to, right? But we're not referring to them as bad. Example, when we was downtown at the demonstrations, one of them, first of all the police shifted over right where we was. This is on a slow day. And then there's, we call it Hollywood. So one guy throws a bottle at the police, a water bottle, and they wrestle him down and everything. And then there's another guy, big old white boy. Now he comes, taking his shirt off. So we on the program, right? And I said, now watch this here. This is Hollywood. That man is working with them. He's on their team. This is a movie. This is the second act of a big movie. This is guy playing the bad guy. I'm just over. And this is the police. He's going to holler at the police, and the police is going to run out and grab him and beat him. And you know what I mean? It's like the movie theater. And they're going to show that on the news, right? And they're working together. We said it so long, they stopped the thing. Remember? They stopped. They just said, forget it. You know where you're making fun of them. Now, here you go. You know, like a wrestling match. You know, wrestling. I said, this is wrestling here. I mean American wrestling, not overseas wrestling. I don't want to go out. You should have saw what one old Iranian guy that was staying with his kids in Colorado. He was watching wrestling. If you get tired and get ready to go, all you got to do is make your dhuhr and head on out. because we may be here a while. Because sometime we get on a roll here, and we're living in a very critical time. We're living in a very critical time, and we're not going to give a 2-minute khutbah, and the people are sitting up there with their teeth chattering and can't wait to run home. Right? We don't do that here. This might be a little longer. So if it gets long, just make your prayer and head on out. Because this is one of those days that this is a critical time. That's right. Just Allahu Akbar and head on out. Because that's what's happening. This masjid has survived more fitna for a longer period of time than anybody in United States history. Just to make sure you understand. You have to understand who we are. You have to understand what we've been doing. I'm going to move toward a kind of a close. I'll just skip, excuse me. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Now, Act 2. Talked so long, I forgot that we were still in Act 1, and that happens every now and then. I'm going to try to be a little more focused right now. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Dear believers, just package up what we said a few minutes ago, and I want to read, O you believe, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, O you believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even as against yourselves, or your parents, or your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor, for Allah can best protect both. Follow not the lust of your hearts, lest you swerve. And if you distort justice, or decline to do justice, verily Allah is well acquainted with all that you do. This is about justice, and I wanted to talk a little bit about justice because there's one point that I wanted to make related to the concept of justice. Now, in the Quran it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qawamanan bil qist shuhada'i lillahi walau ala anfusikum aw wal walidaini wal akribina. So it stands stand up for justice, whether it be against basically against rich or poor, your family or what have you. I said this today because I want to mention something about something we had here, and something we had here dealt with one of our people passing away. And when our brother passed away, we used to refer to him as Imam Tufail, and then I would call Brother Tufail, all of that. And so he lived right next door in that house. As soon as he passed away, I'm trying to get this out real quick, but it looked like it'll take a minute. So, okay. When he passed away, what we said was, hey, now this is after 10 years of direct attack by the government. And so we only had about $6,000 in the kitty. So we told the family, you can take whatever you want, and because it was a couple of days, or one day, it was some holdup. Then one of the members that just departed, said, I know we can do with 3,000. I said, fine. So the person told me, we'll return that soon as, you know what I mean, everything's straightened out. Well, all of a sudden, I've heard, and anybody can correct me if anybody remembers any of this, and I see there's a few people missing, but the idea, and I'm saying this is why I stand up for justice, Bilkist. Justice is a little bit light word for Bilkist. It's strong justice. It means really justice. Justice that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it could be administrated a little bit by you and I. But Bilkist is stronger than adl or some of the other words about balance and justice. Okay. So, you know, this is the one of the ways that America try to break you up is with taxes. I'm going to just be frank and go straight to the point because I don't want. So right now we have our normal tax situation, and that which we was expecting to come back to us, and I would the person could have stayed a little while. The message I got was that no, you said something else about that. You said they don't have to, that's not what I heard. So one of the brothers is missing. But from what we remember, and what we remember from this time, is that we was doing that to make the facility of the people that do the janazah and prepare the body and all that, they would have everything right away because we wasn't doing the wusul and all of that. It was being done at another place. And we say, we got all that covered, and then the family took care of the rest. Now come to me this week, last week, that no, you said this, you said that, and so. But this happens at a time when taxes are deadly, when boss man ain't playing, right? And so I was going to have a little discussion after Jum'ah, but maybe we'll do it next week. The point is this. Imam Tufail lived next door, and I'm just going to close with what I remember. And whatever he did there, he did it because that was part of his sadaqah. If he remodeled that house right there, right, and he paid more rent. For instance, years ago, he used to say the rent was $500. You know, that's reasonable. It's reasonable. But he said, I want to pay $1,000 for the community. You know what I mean? To make sure stuff run, because he was active here, right? Technically, when I wasn't here, he was the Imam, and that was his title, Imam Tufail. Now, me and you might have called him Brother Tufail, this, that, or other, but he was on our paperwork. Remember? I showed her the paperwork said Imam Tufail. Okay, here come some people saying, well, I don't want to even bring that up. You know, that we were not being honorable or something because it's not brother so-and-so. I said, brother is technically about high as you can get, you know, as far as a brother. The point is that all of a sudden, if we want to stand out for justice, that people have to mention what they know about this incident, you know, so that we can do a nice, smooth, whatever, you know. If somebody were to say, well, we don't have the money anymore, we spent it, you know, and if everybody got what they had coming back, then we should too. But if there's some other reason, we didn't say $3,000. We told the people, of course, we'd spend it later. We said, whatever you need. We only have $6,000 left. The white man has been wearing our community out, and we maybe move from 100,000 to 5,000 to 6,000. You know what I mean? It comes down. The point is, if anybody knows and understands, maybe we'll just have a special meeting on this. Because there's things in the Quran and in the Hadith deals with things like speak a word straight to the meaning that has that meaning that was given. And then the last thing I will say is that everybody understands our condition. It ain't nobody in the United States, and I'm not bragging, that's stood up under as much oppression from the government as we have over this period of time. I came here in 1989. That's 30-something years, 31, that's 32, okay. When I came here, I said, we left Oakland. Now, we had the game in Oakland. We had already stood up under the, let's say, 20 years of oppression then, or a good 10 years of oppression in Oakland. So we said, when we go to D.C., we're going to get the game. That means we're going to acquire the knowledge and the structure of oppression. And if we last 5 years, we're on a roll. We've been here 31 years. We've been here 31 years, right? In other words, we drove right on past. When we was here 5 years, we was just getting warmed up. Okay? Now, to give you an understanding, Malcolm X lasted a certain amount of time here in the U.S., basically from 1952 to 1960, 13 years. But it was only the last 5 or 6 years where it was really heated. Martin Luther King, 1956, right? 1956 to 1968. Another 13 years. But his started when he was, the bus boycott down there. Okay, now they stood the pressure that they were under for like 13 years each. All right? Now, we have been here for over 30 years. Another 10, 12 years in Oakland. But the same community. And with what the system would call a worse attitude than all of them had. Because we have not been talking about the liberation of black people and all that. We've been talking about the liberation of humanity right here. And we've been talking a rescue the earth and rescue humanity, right, type of dialogue here. So that makes us more of a threat. And anybody that knows that and seen that from time to time knows that we need everything that's coming to us so we can survive and thrive as a standard community here in D.C. Well, for right now, I'm going to bring this up next week because I would be talking to myself, and I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm going to close with this, dear believers. We're living, it's either one or the other. We're living at the greatest time in history or the most dangerous, perilous time in history. Right? We face all kind of things. The oceans is dirtying up, the air is dirtying up, right? All of that. And they ain't making no moves on that, really. It's saying it's either the best of times or it's the worst of times. And we got both of them, and here we stand in the middle. We have an opportunity where the choices we make and the people we associate with, right, can help make this the best of times. You understand what I'm saying? If we do what we believe Allah has sent to us, with this Islamic approach, we can help make our community and the world the best it's ever been if we follow through. If we don't, it's the worst of times. Hatred will continue to spread. The oceans will boil over. You see what I mean? They will boil over. You don't think it's possible? Look at the car fire in in Northern California. Look at the Santa Rosa fire. When you look at those fires, so we used to fight forest fires in California, and I was a little jailed. They used to do forest fight. Forest fires are different than they used to be. When we was reading about the car fire, it was a hurricane within the fire. In other words, you know the way the old thing to blow air at the blacksmith, to blow air into the fire to make it hotter? Well, imagine if you're in the forest and there's a hurricane in the fire. It's bringing fresh oxygen to the fire. And there's a forest full of wood, right? That's why the forest fires are different than they was when I was a kid. Everything is different now. Pollution is different, right? All the things that are happening to the world today, we have an opportunity. It's either the best of times or it's the worst of times. It could be the best of times if we evolve and we institute what we know of Islam. And that Islam is for everybody. Now, they don't have to practice it, but if we practice in our Islam and involved in humanity's evolution, then the people will get to rubbing elbows with true Islam. And some will like it. You don't have to do no dawah to them. Just be what you are, right? And do what you know, what Allah sent us. Al-Mizan, the earth and the universe with balance, right? And justice. It's off balance now. And that's what was going to be the talk today and got distracted. We, me and you, starting now, can dedicate ourselves to making the world the way it was when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it to us. With balance, right? With freshness, with purity, right? With a cycle that fed everything, and everything, there was no waste in the universe, right? Or in this world. When your body died, it went right back into the earth and did what? When I used to run in the hills in Oakland, I still run in the hills now, but I just technically walk. You could see, if an animal died there, you could see that would be the greenest spot in the woods. You know why? All the body decomposed from that deer or what have you, or a fox or whatever, right? And that was a green spot because all the nutrients was there. When the water came down on it, it brought it up greener than the rest of the forest. That law still exists in Allah's universe. We want to bring that back where the fish can eat the food in the ocean and not die of starvation because it's been eating microplastics. You heard about the microplastics? And the fish don't know. And then you cut the fish open, the fish, his stomach is full of plastic, right? It's full of plastic. The fish don't know that the little things floating around is microplastics, right? The human being did that. You and I, human beings, we got to clean it up. We have to clean it up kind of in a hurry. If we don't, you got to watch now. And I'll close with this. In history, there are many things that destroyed certain regions and areas, right? Allah sent this, or gave us this earth with perfect balance. The sun shines down on the water, polluted up fresh water, distills it, takes it back up, right? Brings it back down, snow, ice, and it's fresh water, distilled. You could drink it. You know, when I was young, that's where we drink water. We drink water from the streams, and we got our water come from right out of a pump. We didn't, or whatever water was around. The bayou, you drink water. Now people drink water from a faucet. That's great. But, we was born in Arkansas next to the bayou, so that's the water we drink. And we had pumps. Some of the water, you can't drink like that no more. You can't drink that water. Why, it's polluted. Allah sent it down fresh, right? The human being sent it down. Allah draws it up, makes it fresh up there, but when it falls down, you ever heard of acid rain? When that water is coming down, it picks up the environmental circumstances, and it rains, and it'll corrode, even in those days, a gravestone. Okay. Dear believers, let's get hold to our Islam. This La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah is a big deal. It's a big deal. You and I are not going to get anything bigger nor better. There ain't no sense of wasting your time looking for something better than La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. It ain't going to happen. But that gives us a mission. That gives you and I a mission. Time is running out. You leave boss man is the troublemaker, right? Now boss man messing with artificial intelligence and everything, right? And this stuff I read from you from 10 years ago, that's like a century ago. 10 years in modern times? Any doctor would have to have been back to be re-educated twice in that time. Pretty soon they're going to have to go back every year or every 6 months to be upgraded. Why? Because now time is compressed, right? 10 years, a long time ago, was nothing at all. 10 years today is an eternity. With artificial intelligence, with spy stuff, with all, anyway. Well, Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful. Keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is besides thee. Ameen.